You're listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.
This episode,
we'll examine John Koenig's world in FAB Facts.
We're off to the Emerald Isle in the Randomiser.
And I'll bring you an entire Space Precinct short story, point blank, written and read by me.
That's all coming up on Pod 122.
Oi, of the Gerry Anderson Podcast.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's get started. Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
The Gerry Anderson Podcast with Jamie Anderson and Richard James.
It's the Gerry Anderson Podcast.
With musical introduction by Richard James.
Of course, it's what people have come to expect, really. Occasionally.
Certainly some of your singing. They've come to expect you, Richard James, and me, Jamie Anderson, him over there, polishing that lovely-looking pair of boots. Chris Dale.
They're coming up lovely, aren't they?
Almost see his face and ours in it. Chris, keep up the good polishing. We'll be back to you later for your famous randomiser. But what else, Richard James, do we have to offer over the next 80, 90 minutes of this Gerry Anderson podcast?
Ah, well, Jamie Anderson, you are listening to the Gerry Anderson Podcast, home of all things Gerry Anderson, including, as Jamie mentioned there, Chris Dale's amazing randomiser, which will be along a little later on, whereby he'll be sitting down in front of a random Gerry Anderson programme and giving us his thoughts and comments as he watches. It's random. Do you see? Random. Also, we'll have some news from the Gerry Anderson universe because, as we know, there's brand new Gerry Anderson stuff happening right now. We'll also have a free, just for you, dear listener, short story from the brand new compilation of stories, Space Precinct Revisited, written and read by yours truly. We've got some Fab Facts coming up at any moment now, and of course, we'll be hearing from our lovely Podsterons who've been emailing us in at podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. They've been joining in on our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Podsterons, and to cap it all, they've been tweeting us and hashtagging us Gerry Anderson Podcast.
Core.
There.
It's amazing how much we cram in every week, isn't it?
Oh, no, we do it every week. You just think once a month would be enough, surely. But no, we've got enough to do it every week.
I believe there are some listeners who also think once a month would be enough.
You could be right.
Unlucky for them, we're still here. Now, Richard James, I've got a challenge for listeners this week.
Okay.
You know, we normally say...
What, to make it to the end, you mean?
Beyond that...
Oh, I see.
We normally say, give us a rating review, make sure you subscribe and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
This week, I want to see your 10-word recommendations for the Gerry Anderson Podcast.
Oh?
If you had only 10 words to describe how amazing an experience it is to be a Podsteron to a friend or a stranger, what would those 10 words be?
Kind of like an elevator pitch.
It is kind of an elevator pitch. Yeah, exactly. But I want it 10 words or less. So tweet your 10 words to me, I'm Jamie Anderson, or him, Richard and James, or use the hashtag Gerry Anderson Podcast. And we'll pick the best 3 and we will create some lovely graphic assets from them and post them around the place. And as a thank you, we'll probably send you something as well. So how's about that?
10 words precisely, or 10 words or fewer? The trouble is
10 words or fewer.
Well, by the time they've mentioned Richard James, Jamie Anderson, Chris Dale, that's 6 words gone, isn't it?
Well, they're not going to do that, are they? It's more about the content and the experience and the nostalgia.
Fair
you know,
enough.
It's really kind of telling us why you love it, but in a way that we can communicate to others. So
that's good.
Let's try that.
Yeah, like it.
And to inspire you on your journey for your 10-word recommendation quote thing, we're going to go now into this week's Fab Facts.
Now, time for this week's Fab Facts.
Richard James, I don't know if you know of Fab Facts.
I'm aware of it.
Get the feeling that you slightly check out of it each week. However, Fab Facts is a section where I have a selection of facts in a book, this book here.
Oh, yeah.
And I flick through it like that. And Richard James says Fab while I'm flicking, and then I stop flicking, and then I read you out a fact from the page where I have stopped flicking, where Richard has said Fab. Richard James, are you ready to say Fab?
Born ready.
I'm ready to flick. Here we go.
Fab!
That was a very exuberant fab today.
Yeah. I had to go a long way away from the microphone to do that.
I could tell. Well, you've stopped us in the mid-1970s.
Ah, brilliant. Space hoppers, spangles, flares, tank tops.
Yes, and the moon.
Yeah, but I don't think that's specific to the mid-1970s, is it?
Well, this particular tale of the moon is.
I see.
But it's the Earth on the moon.
Right.
On the Earth. Sort of. All will become clear, or not.
I bet it won't.
As I give you this week's Fab Fact. At Commander Koenig's office in Space 1999, Richard James. Lovely looking place. I wouldn't mind working there myself.
No.
One of the most prominent features of that office in the first season is a large globe representing Mother Earth, of course, which they sadly left behind. Sorry if that's a bit of a spoiler for you if you've not watched Space 1999 before.
Yeah.
But that globe sat next to his desk.
Right.
But, Richard James,
Yeah.
did you know that when Martin Landau, who played John Koenig, arrived on the set for his first visit to Main Mission,
Yeah.
he was not happy about that globe.
What?
The globe had been painted in full realistic colours. You know, like one of the sort of spinny globes you get from the shops, the ones you had as a kid. Maybe you've got one now, I don't know. Do you have a full sort of blue and green globe?
No, I'd like one.
Anyway, look, he was not very happy about it. He didn't feel it sort of was very fitting for the Moonbase Alpha environment, and he thought a beigey grey one would fit more appropriately than this sort of colourful blue-green thing. So he insisted that it had to be repainted.
Oh.
Typical of these people to move in and redecorate, isn't it, really?
Yeah. Blooming actors.
So based on Martin Landau's requests, the water became a pale grey, the land masses became a charcoal grey, which weirdly, and perhaps coincidentally or not, matched the colour of Koenig's sleeve on his uniform.
Oh, okay.
So basically, Martin Landau was responsible for removing any and all colour from Space 1999.
That is a shame. I would have thought that would have been quite a nice, sort of interesting contrast to the rest of the room, wouldn't it? Visually.
Yeah, I guess maybe he just thought in this stark environment it stands out, and maybe he thought it would, take the focus away from him when he was sat next to it.
Yes, don't have any colour near me because it'll make me look really bland.
Well, it did. I guess it made John Koenig's face the most colourful thing in the room.
I don't know. I always find it very odd when actors kind of make these, demands of. I would never dream of walking onto a set and saying, "Right, that's got to go. That's got to be a different colour. That's got to be smaller."
So did you have no input whatsoever at Orin's desk, for example, in Space Precinct? You didn't get there and kind of arrange things or think, well, I think Orin would probably have a stack of papers separated by colour in an in tray. No?
Not really. No, you just rock up and do the lines, don't you?
Sounds like Martin Landau was more invested in Space 1999 than you were in Space Precinct,
You could
Richard.
be right. I suppose if I had my name, at the front of the titles, then maybe I would have taken it a bit more seriously.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, there's always hope. I can just imagine you doing the Orin spinny chair thing for a new Space Precinct opening title sequence. But we're getting ahead of ourselves there. If, listeners, you know of any other Anderson actors who tried to take control of what was going on their set or location, I'd love to hear it. I don't know if there are any others, but perhaps you know of some who did do that and made those demands. Email us, podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. But I think until the next one, that's pod 123, isn't it? Goodness me, I'd forgotten what number we're on. That is the end of this week's Beige Fact.
There you go. We're not all beige here, of course. We like to think of ourselves as one of the more colourful podcasts available. Is that right? I'd say so.
I think the Spectrum logo sort of perfectly fits with our vibe.
Exactly. Now, people, of course, because we asked them to, have been emailing us at podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. Would you like to hear some of the aforementioned emails?
Nah. Oh,
no, you might regret this one.
Go on, then.
This is from Robert Monk, who says, "Hello, chaps. In pod 113, which already feels a long time ago, Jamie made a request for a certain theme tune to be played on a certain instrument. Remember that, Jamie?"
I do. Was it Space Precinct on the kazoo?
Well, Robert says, "Well, it took me a while to dig it out, but I found it and I played it, and here it is for you all to enjoy. Have a listen to this."
Oh, dear.
Hello, chaps. In one of the recent pods, you requested that people do new renditions to classic Gerry Anderson theme tunes or new theme tunes. Well, it was requested. It took me a while to find it, but here it is.
Well, what do you think?
When you ask for something and you don't really consider the consequences.
Right, okay. Yeah? Is that how you're feeling now?
It's very jolly. It sort of makes me, sort of fold my arms, do sort of chicken wing dance in time with it. You know what I mean?
I know, it's great. No, thank you, Robert. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fantastic.
Robert.
Steve has also got in touch to say, hi, guys. I thought I'd let you have some good news for a change that has come out of the last 6 months. I'm proud to be a regular at the Podders Pub. This is sort of a subset of our Podsterons on her Facebook group. And here are some of my musings on the last 6 months at the Zoom lock-in. I'm not going to name names so they know who they are, but in our Podders group, Podders Pub that is, we have had the group created by 2 talented ladies, 2 writers published books, a young lady become confident enough to read her own fan fiction to the group, 2 group members expressing their love for Lavender Castle and Airwolf, a pun master extraordinaire creating some excellent quiz rounds, 2 established members recounting their experience of watching Thunderbirds when it originally aired in black and white, 2 members gaining qualifications, a members' menagerie expanding to include Lady P, Mr. Biggles and Orson, and another proudly showing off his Big Finish collection. Finally, me, says Steve, being called classy. Such a lovely bunch of friends and fellow connoisseurs of all things Anderson. We've had about 20 quizzes and already discussed the first episodes of Captain Scarlet, UFO, Thunderbirds, Lavender Castle and Space 1999. All the best, FAB, Steve. Isn't that lovely to hear?
That is an amazing list of stuff, and
yes.
I'm very pleased that we have been able to facilitate that, but even more pleased that everyone has sort of taken it and run with it and made their own little community, because we can't make that happen. We can just sort of give us something central to chat about.
Yeah.
But yes, we're very proud of our Podsterons, aren't we, Richard?
That's
James?
right. It's a lovely safe space where people can just be themselves, it seems to me, and that's very nice. And you can join in, of course, listeners, facebook.com/groups/Podsterons. Tom Woods got in touch to say, Dear Thingy and Thingy, I've been wondering in UFO, how come only the girls on Moonbase wear wigs and why purple? Don't get me wrong, I like it, but no one else seems to wear them in the organisation. Regards from Tom Woods. What's that about, Jamie?
Yes, they are protection from radiation, aren't they? A particular type of radiation that only affects the XX chromosome.
Yeah.
No, there's no rhyme or reason. It just looked cool.
Yeah, they did. It's true.
Any suggestion there will be retconned massively and won't make any sense, really. I mean, I just think they should have said it's the fashion, or they look cool and we like it, rather than they're there for any technical scientific purpose, because they clearly weren't.
No, exactly. And finally, Duncan Moss got in touch to say, Hi, Jamie and Richard. I wanted to show you my recently acquired Space Precinct merchandise and have sent you photos of my Morgo figure.
Ooh.
Whose character, he says, although not very successful, made it to a figurine. I know, bizarre. Is he rare, says Duncan. And then he said, please, can anyone give me any info on the 2 Space Police figures, photographs of which he also sent. Also, please can you tell me if David Graham is going to be involved with First Action Bureau? So, well, firstly, those odd Space Police characters that you sent a picture of yourself holding there, Duncan, were rip-offs. They were sort of bootleg, slightly chunkier versions of the Space Precinct characters. I know, they're very sort of bloated torsos and very odd. Just to cash in on the craze, I suppose, at the time. But nice to get hold of, I suppose. Morgo, I think, was probably no rarer than any other figure, but a strange one to choose. And finally, David Graham. Is he going to be involved in First Action Bureau, Jamie?
I can tell you he's not in Series 1, but I certainly wouldn't rule it out for Series 2. The difficulty for us, Duncan, is that I don't think David has a home studio, and obviously with his age, we have to be very, very, very careful that we're not, dragging him out of home and putting him at any risk. So the current situation certainly gives us some complications when it comes to casting, but never say never.
Yeah, very good. All for now, but do get in touch, podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk, and I'll read out some more emails next time.
Well, you say all for now. You mean all for now in terms of messages and emails and stuff.
So much more to come.
But there's a hell of a lot to come. So let's get underway immediately with this week's Gerry Anderson News. Yes, it's the
So-
Gerry Anderson News.
Jamie.
Yes, Richard
Are we
James.
we're actually going to do this, are we? It's going to be proper news, not just dropped in last minute because you've forgotten something or got it wrong, like has happened over the last 2 podcasts.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm
Really?
always perfectly prepared and accurate and never get anything wrong. No, I have worked a bit harder this week to make sure that it's all right. We've been doing stuff ahead of time.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Things have gone out of kilter a bit, and then
Yeah.
I've forgot which week it was going to be released, and I put the wrong date at the top of the script. But this week, I promise everything is okay.
Come on, then.
Okay, for this week, beginning Monday, the 4th of April, 2019.
Oh,
No, I'm joking. Richard,
Yes.
we've just missed Terrorhawks Day.
Yes, we have, haven't we?
10/10/2020.
Yeah.
What a date. As you will probably know, because I know all of you are Terrorhawks fans. Yes, even you. And you. We had a great Terrorhawks Day t-shirt design. Imagine that, from the lovely Chris Thompson, which will only be available until the end of this week, featuring some rather lovely design elements taken from the opening titles. Very smart indeed. And I think we had a little Terrorhawks documentary out on YouTube. If you haven't watched it, then you might find something to love about Terrorhawks, or find something to love even more about Terrorhawks.
Yes.
As you know, there's some reboot stuff going on, and very soon I think we might be able to show you some teasers from that, possibly. We'll see, just some development
Right.
stuff. But
Okay.
all rather exciting. And to celebrate as well, I think next week we've got a rather special guest on the Randomiser.
Have we now?
I shall say no more at this stage, but we'll talk about it next week.
Okay.
Zelda obviously is a rather spooky character, Richard, and as you know, coming up at the end of this month, it's Halloween.
Again? That seems to come around every year, doesn't
It's strange, yeah, with alarming frequency and
Yes.
predictability. I think that our dear chum, who's still polishing those boots over there, Chris Dale, is working on a spooky marionation video.
it? Like it.
Do you get it? Do you get the part there?
Oh, yes.
So there'll be something to look forward to there. But we've got some rather cool Halloween designs coming out very shortly, and they may already be out today, in fact. Richard, do you remember way back? Gosh, when was it? Pod 50, I think. Was it? Or
I
Pod
won't
55?
remember that far back.
When we did
Right.
the live podcast from the Space Centre.
Oh, yeah, that was nice.
Yeah. And then we did Fab Live Live on the Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
And we did Fab or Fib, didn't we?
Oh, we did. Yes, that's right.
And you created, for one of your fibs, Porky the Butchery Boy.
Did I?
You did.
I mean, it sounds like the sort of thing I'd do, to be honest.
Absolutely, very you. And Lee Sullivan did a rather amazing Porky the Butchery Boy terrifying sketch.
Yes,
Do you remember the flip chart?
I do remember now, yes.
Well, I'm proud
Yes.
to say that Lee Sullivan has turned Porky the Butchery Boy into a character
What?
who now graces a Halloween t-shirt. It is
Great.
amazing. I absolutely
it.
love it, and I think you're going to love it too. It's perfect, whether you know Torchy or not, because it's just creepy.
nice.
So go and have a look at that. Also joining our Halloween spooky season lineup is a baddies and villains lineup, with all of them having their sort of police mugshots taken, which is rather nice.
Oh, yeah.
And also a fantastic Dragon's Domain design. Core. It is lovely. If Dragon's Domain freaked you out as a kid,
Yeah.
and it's something you have fond or not fond memories of, I think you're really going to like that. So pop along
nice.
to the Gerry
Like it.
Anderson Store and have a search for either Porky,
Yeah.
Villains,
Right.
or Dragon's Domain, and you'll find something to tickle your fancy.
Yes,
right there.
great. Shiver your spine.
They are really great. I'm so proud of those. Chris has done a great job. Now, lots and lots of stuff at the Gerry Anderson Store. In fact, the store is what's the word, Richard, when something's really full? Bursting at the seams? Is that what I want to say?
That'll do. Okay.
Yes, bursting at the seams. There's so many designs there. So, from this Friday onwards, we will be holding a Farewell Friday where we'll be saying goodbye to a number of designs each week. Up to 12 products we'll be saying goodbye every single week from now until the end of the year.
Gosh.
As we make way for other new and exciting things. Some great
Office Iron
news.
Underpants.
They are lined up for sometime in the very distant future. Yes, so we'll be making way for lots of new cool stuff. some rather exciting things have been happening behind the scenes, which we'll be able to share with you properly soon. But yes, just keep an eye on the Farewell Fridays section and email each week to make sure that you don't miss out on those designs if you want to grab them before they disappear.
Great.
There's so much this week, Richard. I need to take a breath. Hang on one second.
I know. Go on, have a sip.
Anderson Audiobooks Argo Part 2. The co-production between Big Finish Productions and Anderson Entertainment has resulted in another 3 books. Of course, you heard Gemini Force 1 Ghost Mine last week. Today you're hearing something called Space...
Space something
Space
or other, yeah.
I can't see what that word is. By Richard...
never heard of him.
Something, yeah. So you get that today. And there's also Planetfall, which is the follow-up to the Into Infinity pilot novelisation, where... Well, would you guess it? They go down onto a planet, make Planetfall.
Yes.
By Gregory L. Norris, performed by Robbie Stevens.
Great.
They form the next wave of this set of Gerry Anderson audiobooks, and more are coming early next year, probably in January or February. And I believe, Richard, you're looking at doing some more stuff for us in that area. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I'm looking at it, yeah. That's all I've done so far. I've looked at it.
And is you looking at it an exclusive? I think it might be.
Yes.
What a fantastic exclusive that is. So you can grab those from bigfinish.com or from the Gerry Anderson Store. If you want to download it on your Big Finish app, then please buy it from bigfinish.com. It doesn't matter where you get it from, whatever works best for you. Have you watched the Genesis of Thunderbirds video, Richard? Because about 40,000 people have.
Really?
Yeah. It's the audio segment from our 100th podcast, made into video by the marvellous Chris Dale. God, he does a lot of stuff, doesn't he?
Doesn't he? Yes.
Lots of footage from the Lenged mine disaster and all sorts of great clips and bits and pieces. A really lovely watch. A nice way to spend half an hour if you want to know about the Genesis Thunderbirds.
Great.
And finally, ironically, First Action Bureau. Get it?
Finally first.
Yeah, got it. Good. Episode 4 is out. Episode 5 is coming out this Thursday. If you're an Anderson Insider, you will get it a couple of days early. So if you're desperate to hear First Action Bureau's next episode, then, pop along to patreon.com/Anderson Insiders. It's going down very well. I'm very proud of what we've achieved there with First Action Bureau, Dickie. Everyone seems to love it. I mean, I've seen a couple of people say that their favourite character is the Bureau computer, played by Richard...
I can't remember his name.
Something or other.
Something, yeah. I know, you're right. Yes, a little later on, Jamie, if you'll allow me, I'm going to read out some tweets for giving people's thoughts on the First Action Bureau.
Tweets praising us?
Yeah,
I think I can probably stomach that. I'll try my best anyway. I like to be humble like that. So anyway, and that's all I think for this week. So let's give our news items a wave, bid them farewell as we come to the end of this week's Gerry Anderson News.
And that was the news. My voice is going news. Oh, I'm so sorry to inflict that upon you.
Oh, that was so lovely.
That was terrible.
So feline.
Yeah, sorry about that. Just a quick word about First Action Bureau being free. I think that's extraordinary. And of course, you mentioned there that Anderson Insiders may get an episode a couple of days before everyone else. And it is worth saying, of course, that Anderson Insiders, all those people that have subscribed to be insiders and pay their sort of monthly dues and so on, people who buy stuff at the store and people who buy their merchandise, this is where your money is going. It's going to create brand new Gerry Anderson stuff. Those of you that can't afford it, of course, that's absolutely fine because you still get the free stuff. That's what's wonderful. If you want to contribute to this brave new world, you're very welcome to. And if you can't, well, that's fine as well because you're still part of it.
Exactly. And always will be.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Now, I'm going to head over to our Facebook group, if that's all right, and let you know what they've been doing there. Yeah, well, they've been playing the usual games and having their quiz nights and screenings and so on. And Joanne Bennett posted that she dragged herself out for a walk while the weather was nice. Her mental health desperately needed it. So out in nature, she was catching up with First Action Bureau, and she's loving it so far, which is very good. Now, I'm interested to know, where have you been listening to First Action Bureau? I have seen, because the episodes are quite short, they're sort of quite bite-sized, aren't they? And I have been seeing people just going out for a walk or in their cars or just driving about on their bikes or whatever it might be, listening to First Action Bureau. So where have you been safely listening to First Action Bureau? Let us know. David McKenzie is a new Podsteron, new to our group, and he says, Hi everyone. Thanks to the admins for admitting me. I can't believe I didn't know about the podcast until now. He says, I became hooked on Supermarination during the 90s BBC Two reruns of Thunderbirds, Captain Scarlet and Stingray. Subsequently, my dad showed me Fireball XL5, which was his favourite in the 60s. I also had Thunderbirds Are Go and Thunderbirds 6 on VHS, and there are quite a few pictures of me in my International Rescue costume alongside my older brother, who was always Captain Scarlet. He says, I've been loving the podcast. Not going to lie, I haven't ventured outside of the Puppet series. Can I ask a silly question? I know in canon the worlds of Fireball XL5, Stingray, Thunderbirds and Captain Scarlet all exist in the same universe, but has there ever been any crossover books? Jamie?
I actually don't know. Isn't that terrible? I mean, TV21 stories, absolutely.
Yeah.
From the comics. I don't think there is any major crossover in the books. Maybe some odd mentions, particularly around Wasp and Stingray and that kind of thing for Gordon and Thunderbird 4.
Yeah.
But as far as I know, not really. The most crossover-y type thing is that Doctor Who book, which is all based around nods to Anderson stuff. Do you know the one I mean?
Okay. Yes, I do. Yes.
Which I've forgotten the title of, but everything's kind of... There's like a Spectrum type organisation,
right.
and a Stingray type craft and all sorts of stuff going on, but none by that name.
Oh, okay. James Pilson Wood says, in case anyone hasn't seen, the Gerry Anderson Store is selling a very limited stock of the Kickstarter Firestorm DVD and Blu-rays, a must-have in my book for collectors. Well, maybe, James, there's still some there. I don't know. How's that going, Jamie?
Yes, we basically are having a bit of a warehouse clear out and found 10 in a box. So... they're mostly gone, I think, but if you wanted to grab one, then just pop along to the store and search Firestorm and you'll find it there.
And Ashley Bell finally says, if I did a reboot of a Gerry Anderson show, it would be set in the year 2099, this time with Brian Cox and Joanna Lumley, and Richard James could play pilot Alan Carter. How about that, Jamie and Richard? And that's from Ashley Bell from Sale in Manchester.
How's your Aussie accent, Richard?
Well, I'm sure I could brush it up. Now, Wayne Forrest is the man to go to for an Aussie accent, isn't
he? He is indeed.
Yes. But yes, I think I'd probably see myself more of a Barry Morse.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I can see you Bergmaning.
Yeah. Can you from there?
Yeah, she closed the curtains.
There we are. All for now. Do join in on our Facebook group. Join in the fun, and I'll read out some messages next time.
Cool. We get so many lovely inbound messages. Thank you all. Please do keep them coming.
Yeah.
Now, I say keep them coming. This may put them off, I suppose. This week's special feature is not an interview. It is instead an audiobook. Well, it's a full short story from Space Precinct Revisited, recently released by Anthem Entertainment and Big Finish Productions, written and read by the one and only Richard Neinstein James.
That's true.
Now, Richard, just tell me about these stories, because we talked about doing this ages and ages ago.
Yeah.
And then, we said, we want to do 4 stories. Great, off you go. And then I basically left you to it. And then you sent me an email and said, here they are.
Yeah. No, what happened, Jamie? You left me to it. I left it right to the last minute. And then I did it and sent you an email.
That is true.
That's the way it works.
Yeah. So what was, bearing in mind you're saying now it was last minute, what was the process like for this? Was it just sit down and frantically write, panicking, copying and pasting bits in the hope that it would up the word count?
No, I mean, the writing, actually, that's always the tip of the iceberg, I always find. It's the thinking behind it beforehand, isn't it? Lots of cups of coffee and walking by the, sitting by the river and walking around the village and all that sort of stuff while I got the plots together. It was an interesting thing to do because, of course, we started the ball rolling with the adaptation of Demeter City, the pilot story, didn't we, earlier in the year? But the great thing about these stories is that they are official canon. I mean, I think I put a tweet out today saying that these stories did actually happen. It's just that we never saw them on TV. Exactly. And that's the way I like to look at them. These absolutely slot into the earlier episodes. It's very specific in the first 4 or 5 episodes of Space Precinct. And I just wanted to retain the flavour, really. Each one runs about the same time as an episode, a bit shorter, one of them a bit longer, but I wanted to really retain the flavour and the characters from the original series while also perhaps taking the opportunity to look a bit closer at 1 or 2 of the more neglected ones. So we have a story featuring Slow-Mo, who saves the day. We have Die Hard in Space, which is a story called Everything Must Go, set on, I think we mentioned this last time, an orbiting shopping mall. And this one, Point Blank, which to me feels very sort of early Space Precinct, around the time of Flash and The Enforcer, that sort of feel.
Well, shall we see if our Podsterons agree with you, Richard?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, here it is. Space Precinct Revisited, Point Blank.
Point Blank. If Demeter City was a melting pot, then Krasaki Plaza was the stove on which it boiled. On a good day, a representative of just about every race could be seen, weaving through the crowded lines of market stalls. Creons, Tarns, Xyronites and Clyburns all jostled for space among traders selling spices, food, wildlife and mechanical parts. The air was rich with the smell of Simpter squab and engine oil. "Sometimes I wish I had eyes in the back of my head," hissed Haldane as he tried to see through the crowd. "Ah, Haldane," muttered Lieutenant Brogan beside him, pointing to a female carrying a large bag of produce. "She does have eyes in the back of her head." Looking suitably offended by the remark, the alien woman clutched her shopping even tighter to her body and made her way through the market. Backwards. The two cops felt uneasy in their civilian clothes. Brogan guessed it made them less of a target, but still, he tightened his grip on the police-issue blaster he'd hidden in his jacket pocket. "I will never get used to this place," breathed Haldane uneasily. "Sure you will," chuckled Brogan. "It's just a case of keeping an open mind." A bleep from Brogan's multicom suddenly caught his attention. Flipping it on, he saw the face of Captain Podley filling the screen. "How goes it, Brogan?" Brogan checked his watch. We're just a couple of minutes away from the speech, Captain." He looked nervously around him. "It sure is busy here." Podley was suddenly wistful. "I bought my first Bliber from Krasaki Plaza. Saved up for it all year." "What's a Bliber?" Haldane chipped in. "It's a bit like one of your earthworms, except it's thick and 3 feet long." "What did you do with it?" asked Brogan, almost afraid of the answer. "Ate it, of course. Delicious." Haldane leaned in closer to the lieutenant's ear. "Still keeping an open mind, Brogan?" "Well, remember," Podley continued, suddenly officious, "keep a low profile. Franklin wants to do his Man of the People act, and he explicitly asked that we keep our presence low-key." "Don't worry," interjected Haldane. "I think we blend in quite nicely." He brushed an insect from his shoulder, only to see that it had left something rather smelly behind it. "Oh, great," he said to himself. "Today's going swimmingly." "Okay," came Podley's voice from the multicom. "I'll leave it to you. Keep your eyes on the crowd, gentlemen. Officers Orin and Beazle are on standby if you need them." Brogan rolled his eyes. I don't think that'll be necessary, Captain, but thanks." He snapped the multicom off and slipped it into his pocket. "Okay, where's Franklin making his appearance?" Haldane pointed through the crowd. "Over there, on the steps to the town hall." "Let's hope he keeps it short and sweet," Brogan muttered with a nod. They were interrupted by a blast of music that stopped the shoppers around them in their tracks. Some of them were clearly annoyed at the interruption. "People of Demeter City," came a voice. "My people!" Brogan and Haldane moved through the crowd to be closer to the makeshift stage. "There he is," said Haldane, unimpressed. "The saviour of Demeter City." A rather portly man in his late 50s had taken to the stage. His grey hair was pulled back into a ponytail, and his suit was shinier than his jewellery. "Keep an eye on the crowd, Haldane. I'll watch the stage." Between the columns that flanked the entrance to the town hall, Brogan saw a Tarn woman had joined Franklin, holding a placard above her head. Even this far back in the crowd, the lieutenant could read the words "Vote Franklin" written in big red capital letters. "Do you want a life free from fear?" came Franklin's voice. "Do you want a life free from crime?" Slowly, he was grabbing the attention of the passers-by. Even a group of drunks by the liquor store were looking his way. "Vote for me to be your mayor, and I will sweep the streets clean." There was a small round of applause from a gaggle of aliens by the stage. "Stooges," muttered Brogan to himself. "For too long," Franklin was continuing, "Demeter City has been run by the crooks, while the cops stand by and do nothing." There were murmurs of agreement around the stage. "Way to make us feel welcome," Haldane sighed. "Make me your mayor, and all your troubles will be behind you. Vote for me, and you can live your lives as free people. I will keep you safe." A Xironite near the front of the crowd had taken to the steps. "This man saved my life," he declared, grabbing the microphone from Franklin's hands. "I have a shop by the harbour. Every week I was visited by a gang who demanded money or they'd burned my store." There were murmurs of sympathy. "I wrote to Mr. Franklin and I never saw them again." There was a huge cheer from the crowd. I wonder what happened to them, Haldane whispered. Probably found themselves in the water, feeding the fishes. The Zyronite's another stooge, muttered Brogan, and it's working. Looking around the plaza, the lieutenant could see the crowd was surging forward towards the stage. Tarns and Creons alike held their hands high as they chanted Franklin's name. He's obviously got away with words, Haldane breathed uneasily. Suddenly, just as the crowd was at its thickest, Brogan noticed a bead on Franklin's jacket. A red dot, moving its way up his body to the centre of his chest. Brogan was alert. "There's a shooter," he called. Oblivious, Franklin was waving in triumph. Brogan pushed his way through the crowd. "Find the gun!" he yelled back to Haldane as a shot rang out. The crowd was suddenly silent as the sound of the blast echoed around the plaza, and Franklin fell to the ground with a thud. Dead. The body bag zipped over his face. Franklin's body was lifted with care onto the gurney. As the two paramedics carried it away, Brogan was joined by Beazle and Orrin. Unlike the lieutenant, the two officers were in full police uniform. "We found this at the back of the plaza." Beazle held a laser blaster in front of him, discarded on one of the balconies overlooking the square. "Looks like that's our shooter, all right," Orrin added. Brogan took the weapon and weighed it in his hands. It's certainly consistent with the scorch marks on Franklin's body. He held the weapon up and squinted down its sight. "Looks like a professional job to me. From that distance, with so many people about, I'd have to agree." Beazle sighed, scratching at the fuzz of hair on his head with a 3-fingered hand. "No other evidence, though," Orrin continued. "According to the landlord, the apartment's been empty for weeks." Brogan nodded. "Where is the landlord now?" He's in the back of our cruiser, Lieutenant," replied Beazle, waiting to be taken back to the station house for questioning. He's all we've got for now," offered Orrin, apologetically. Brogan returned the gun. "Not all," he said. "Send this to Dr. Carson in forensics. See what he can find. I'm looking for prints, residue, whatever." Brogan was clenching his teeth. "Forensics?" Orrin replied. "I thought Carson was a computer technician." "He's multidisciplinary," Brogan snapped back. As Orrin and Beazle made their way back through the now empty plaza, Officer Haldane approached. He was leading the Tarn female who Brogan had seen behind Franklin on the stage. Her blue skin was streaked with tears. "Brogan, this is Mona Vladik, Franklin's personal assistant." Brogan felt sorry for the poor woman. "Miss Vladik, I'm sorry to keep you, but I'd like to ask you a few questions." The Tarn nodded. "Officer Haldane has explained everything. He's been most kind." Brogan saw her bottom lip begin to quiver. "Poor Mr. Franklin," she sobbed suddenly. "He didn't deserve this. He wanted to make Demeter City a better place." She lifted a handkerchief to her face. "Now he's gone." Brogan always felt uncomfortable around people displaying strong emotion. "Miss Vladik," he began, "had Franklin received any threats to his life?" The Tarn gave a snort in response. "He was a politician, Lieutenant Brogan. What do you think?" Brogan nodded. "But nothing specific." Mona Vladik calmed herself. "Mr. Franklin had many enemies. Barely a day went by without some sort of threat. I guess if you tread on so many toes, you're going to upset someone sooner or later." "Just whose toes had he been treading on lately?" Haldane asked softly. Mona shrugged. "Half of Demeter City?" She dabbed at her eyes again. "Mr. Franklin was making the defeat of crime a big part of his election campaign. He'd vowed to rid the streets of criminals." "That's what the police are for, Miss Vladik." Haldane was sceptical. "And much good you did Mr. Franklin today," Mona suddenly wailed. "It's because of incidents like this that the public are losing trust in the police." Brogan felt stung by the criticism. "We were told to keep a low profile," he argued. "If I'd had my way, this whole place would have been teeming with cops." Haldane held up a hand to placate his partner. "Miss Vladik," he began, flashing the Tarn a pearly white smile. "Just how many people knew about his appearance here today?" "Not many," the Tarn thought carefully. "DCPD, of course, and a few others in our campaign team, but Mr. Franklin liked to keep things tight." Haldane encouraged her with a look. "Maybe 4 of us, with me and Mr. Franklin included. Others come and go." Lieutenant Brogan nodded. Well, somehow word got out. His blue eyes narrowed as he looked around the plaza. Whoever it was killed Franklin knew exactly where and when he was going to speak.
Come on, can't a guy get a bite to eat?
The interrogation room was deliberately sparse. Harsh lighting fell upon the cold metallic floor. The only furniture in the room was a table with 4 chairs placed around it. There wasn't even a food dispenser, grumbled Torst Tinkler. Tinkler had lived in Demeter City all his life, and he'd never been in trouble before. The closest he'd come to trouble had been the day his mom had beaten him for getting a tattoo. He rubbed at the ink symbol on his cheek as he remembered the punishment. He had inherited the family's apartment in Krasaki Plaza when she died, but rented it out for the last 5 years. "Do you have a list of previous tenants, Mr. Tinkler?" Officer Orin asked from the seat opposite.
Sure, Tinkler sighed. It's all in the data chip I gave your friend here.
He nodded to Beazle, who sat beside his partner, a cup of coffee in his hand.
Just who had access to that balcony, Mr. Tinkler?
Beazle took a sip from his cup.
No one,
Tinkler declared, exasperated.
The only way onto that balcony is through the apartment, which, as I've told you already, is currently empty.
Well, then who has a key to the apartment? Orin was watching Tinkler carefully.
It's palm print activated,
Tinkler said with a shrug.
Until I get a new tenant and put their prints on the system, only I can get in.
There was a silence as the 2 Creons stared at the man across the table. With their wide, swivelling eyes, it was a disconcerting sight.
When were you last at the apartment, Mr. Tinkler?
Tinkler couldn't tell if the Creon was smiling or not.
Just last week, he said at last. The boiler needed maintenance. Look, am I going to get anything to eat or not?
Beazle slid an electronic workpad over the table. Leaning forward, Tinkler could see that it was displaying a picture of a large gun. "Look familiar?" Orin asked.
Nope.
Tinkler shook his head and crossed his arms.
Do I gotta call my lawyer?
Just as Beazle opened his mouth to answer, there was a buzz at the door. With a sigh, the Creon officer rose from the table to punch the entry code into the panel on the wall. The door slid open.
"Officer Beazle, Dr. Carson has finished the report on that weapon you asked for."
Sergeant Fredo was tall enough to have to duck as he walked through the door into the interrogation room. He handed Beazle a piece of paper and cast a look at the human behind the desk.
"Aren't you hungry?"
he asked, innocently. Beazle scanned the paper in front of him.
"No prints? No DNA?"
he muttered.
"No residue of any kind?"
"Nothing?" Orin's eyes widened even more.
"Man, you've only got to breathe on a surface and you'd leave something behind."
"Well, Carson's found nothing." Beazle waved the paper in the air irritably.
"It's as if the gun just fired itself." "In which case, I take it I'm free to go?"
Tinkler pushed his chair back from the table.
"Maybe even get some lunch?"
Beazle looked to Sergeant Fredo. "You've got nothing on him." The Tarn sergeant shrugged. "You've got to let him go." Scrunching up the paper in his hand, Beazle nodded to Tinkler and gestured to the door.
"We'll have a skycab drop you downtown." Should be perfect."
Tinkler stretched up onto his toes so he could face the Creon, eye to eye.
"Just down the road from my lawyer." He gave a chuckle. "You'll be hearing from him in due course."
As the landlord sauntered from the room, Beazle sat at the table again and buried his face in his hands. The police cruiser landed with a hiss outside Franklin's campaign headquarters. As the gull-wing doors lifted, Officer Haldane jumped from his seat to assist Mona Vladik from the vehicle.
"Thank you, Officer Haldane," she responded. "Most kind."
Brogan looked at the dilapidated building before him. It looked like a converted shop, and had a tatty Vote Franklin banner draped across the window. It wasn't exactly the most salubrious of neighbourhoods.
"We're a small campaign, Lieutenant,"
Mona explained as she led the 2 policemen inside. It was almost as if she'd read his mind. "This is all we could afford." The inside of the building looked even tattier. A row of computer terminals lined a wall, all left unattended. Their operators had left their terminals to crowd round a vid screen opposite. Brogan could see they were watching a rolling news report of the attack in Krasaki Plaza. As they heard the party approaching, one of the campaign workers, an alien woman, turned from the screen.
"Oh, Mona!"
she exclaimed, running to embrace Franklin's Tarn assistant by the door. "What a terrible thing to have happened! Are you all right?" Mona Vladik held the lady tenderly by her shoulders. "I'm fine," she replied, "just a little shaken." Miss?" Brogan interjected. "I'm gonna need your personnel files." She was like no alien Brogan had seen before. Humanoid in appearance, but with droopy, fleshy jowls and a turned-up nose. "Of course, Lieutenant Brogan," the alien replied, eyeing Brogan's badge. "I'll send them over to your department at once." With that, she walked briskly to a computer terminal to retrieve the files. "I told you this would happen." Brogan looked up to see a human male. Dad was making too many enemies. "Dad?" Brogan echoed, sharing a look with his partner. "This is Paul Franklin," the alien woman explained from her computer console. "Mr. Franklin was his father. I knew it would end this way, but no one would listen. Just when we had victory in our sights." Brogan was suddenly interested. "Really?" "Absolutely." The young man strode to a computer terminal and punched at some buttons. The rolling news on the vid screen was replaced by a graph. "We were going to walk it." He pointed to the screen. "See that line? That's the result of cumulative polling over the last 3 weeks. As you can see, it's going up and up. We were 15 percentage points above our nearest rival." "Who is?" asked Haldane, peering up from beneath his fringe. "Don't you follow politics at all, Officer Haldane?" Mona Vladik looked disappointed. Haldane flashed her his toothiest grin. "I'm more of a baseball kind of guy," he teased. Paul Franklin stabbed at another button, and a big blue face filled the screen. "Loman Craylor has been the mayor of this district for the last 12 years, he explained. "Melozoid?" Brogan asked. Paul nodded. "And he hasn't taken kindly to our campaign." "In what way?" Haldane rested his foot on a chair as he listened. "Craylor was getting personal," Paul replied. "Seeing how well Dad was doing in the polls was getting to him, so he got down and dirty." "How so?" Brogan was studying the Melozoid's face intently. "He started dragging up details of my father's past business dealings. None of it true, of course. Craylor said my dad had got rich on dodgy deals." Paul switched the screen off with a look of apology. "I can't bear to look at him for long. He'll walk this election now for sure." Brogan was aghast. "They're still going to hold the vote?" "There will be a suitable period for reflection, of course," the alien woman interjected, "but yes, then they'll hold the vote, and Loman Craylor will win." "What about the other guy?" Brogan had walked over to the computer console and punched at a button. The graph appeared on the screen again. 3 lines climbed on the y-axis as the weeks passed. Franklin in the lead, Craylor second, and another name in third. Rel Gavir? "The Tarn?" Paul scoffed. "He's a distant third. Grew up in the only Tarn family in the slums of Krupp Street. It sure made him tough, but he doesn't stand a chance. It would, though," the alien woman added, "be the first time a Tarn has held the position if he won." "It makes me sick to the stomach," Paul suddenly exclaimed. "Everyone knows Craylor has paid off half the district to vote for him, just like he did last time. Then he put up their taxes and grew even fatter on other people's money." "So that, Lieutenant Brogan," began the alien woman as she turned to the policeman at her side, "is where I suggest you direct your investigation." "You denied him food?" Captain Podley was apoplectic. Well, sir," stuttered Orrin, "it wasn't quite like that." Podley was pacing behind his desk, clutching a computer printout in his hand. Fumbling with his glasses, he took a breath. "For the illegal incarceration of my client," he read, "the denial of food, loss of earnings and inconvenience, I have been instructed by my client, Dorst Tinkler, to sue the Demeter City Police Department for the sum of 50,000 credits." 50,000 credits? Beasel's mouth hung open. "That's one hell of a lunch." Podley stopped pacing. "Are you trying to be funny, Officer Beasel?" No, sir." Beasel dropped his eyes to the floor, suddenly sheepish. "Loss of earnings," piped up Orrin bravely. "The man's a landlord. He didn't lose any money for the time he was here." "Well,"
spluttered Podley. "Tell that to Messrs. Gregory and Gorton, personal injury lawyers." "Personal injury?" "Tinkler is alleging that his reputation has been damaged beyond repair. It's nonsense, of course, but how many more times do I have to tell you?" Podley's voice was rising in anger. "Go by the book, and you won't go wrong." He slammed the printout onto his desk and flopped into his chair, seemingly exhausted. "Yes, sir," mumbled Orrin. "Now," continued Podley, removing his glasses, "just how far have you got in this assassination case?" "Well, sir," said Beazle, "Brogan and Haldane are investigating the campaign staff. We were about to look at the security video footage from the plaza." He nudged his partner. "Weren't we, Orrin?" Orrin blinked. Sure," he said. "Yes, we were." Podley seemed placated. "Well, get to it," he snapped suddenly, "and send your findings over to Lieutenant Brogan." "Yes, sir." The two Creon officers bundled their way out of the office door. "Oh, and officers." "Yes, sir." "Let's try and go by the book this time, shall we?" At last the ketchup dispenser had been fixed. "You're welcome," smiled Brogan, as Officer Haldane held his chili dog in the stream of sticky red liquid. "I had the maintenance guys have a look the last time she was in for a service." "Perfect," grinned Haldane as he bit down. Perhaps the day wasn't going to be so bad after all. Beneath them, the streets of Demeter flashed past. "Almost looks peaceful from up here," sighed Brogan as he hung a left. Suddenly, they were both flung backwards in their seats. An alarm sounded from the dashboard. "What the—" Haldane wiped ketchup from his face. "Someone just rammed us," Brogan gasped as they were thrown back again. "Warning!" blared the onboard computer. "Proximity alarm!" "No kidding," sneered Haldane as he leaned forward in his seat. Punching at a button, he called up the rear-view mirror. "It's a limousine," he panted as the vehicle appeared on the screen. "Blacked-out windows." Brogan gripped the steering wheel hard. "Hold on to your chili dog," he said, as he sent the cruiser into a dive. The engines screamed as they dropped, the G-force pinning the two cops to their seats. At last they levelled off. Haldane squinted at the screen. "No sign of them," he said, relieved. "I'm going to put an APB out on that limousine." Just as Brogan leaned forward towards the comms, the cruiser was hit from the side. Hard. Brogan wrestled to keep control as Haldane gazed from the passenger window. "That's our bird," he said, "and it's coming in for another bite." The limo seemed to throw itself through the air towards the police cruiser. It made contact with a crump, and Brogan heard the rending of metal. "Warning!" screamed the alarm from the dashboard. "Ah, knock it off," seethed Haldane as he stabbed wildly at the buttons. Another impact sent the cruiser tumbling towards a condensing tower in the industrial quarter. Noxious steam rose into the air. "Brogan," cautioned Haldane as he pointed through the windshield. "We go through that and we'll be cooked." "I see it," called Brogan as he wrestled with the wheel. Haldane braced himself against his seat. Brogan felt the young cop tensing beside him. "I see it," he repeated as he pulled the cruiser into a roll. The planet beneath tumbled in their windshield as they fell. Then, suddenly, Brogan pulled up. The cockpits shook as they climbed until they met the blackness of space. Haldane looked around them. "Whoever it was, we've lost them." He punched the air with his fist and laughed. "They didn't get us this time." But Brogan looked worried. It didn't feel to him like the driver of that limousine had meant to get them. It felt more like a warning. Orrin and Beazle sat at their desk in the station house, reviewing the video files from the assassination in Krasaki Plaza. They'd recovered footage from 3 angles and were currently watching in silence as Franklin took the hit to his chest, Mona Vladik standing behind him with her placard. "Let's see the reverse angle," said Orrin, keying in the instructions on his console. The view changed to the rear of the square. "Tilt 20 degrees," he commanded, and the image lifted to the balcony outside Tinkler's apartment. "It's the perfect vantage," enthused Beazle. "Almost directly opposite. Run footage." Orrin pressed a button beneath the screen, and the surveillance footage played. The crowd had gathered already. Orrin could see the tops of their heads at the bottom of the screen. Then, a flash from the balcony. "There!" Beazle pointed at the screen. "Enhance and replay." Officer Orrin's fingers danced over the keyboard, and the camera zoomed in closer to the balcony in question. The footage rolled again. There was the flash. "It's too dark, Orin. That whole side of the plaza is in shadow." "Let there be a light," his partner exclaimed as he thumped at the keyboard again. As the picture brightened, the two Creons peered closer to the screen, their eyes wide. "Just a minute," whispered Beazle. "Do you see what I see?" There, slap bang in the middle of the screen, was the gun that had fired the shot that had killed Franklin. It was hovering, completely unsupported, in mid-air. Brogan had set the cruiser down safely outside Loman Craylor's palatial residence. The gate stood open before what looked like an old-fashioned manor house, dumped in the middle of Demeter City. "Hell of a bachelor pad," smirked Haldane as he sprang from his seat. Brogan joined him at the rear of the cruiser to survey the damage. The offside thruster unit was cracked. "She'll get us home," Brogan smiled. A beep sounded from the cockpit. Poking his head back through the door, Haldane punched a button on the dash. "Brogan, it's the personnel files from Franklin's campaign headquarters." He flashed the lieutenant a smile. "You go ahead. I'll stay here and check through them." Nodding in confirmation, Brogan grabbed his police jacket from the back seat and headed through the gates. Odd, he thought, how easy it was to gain access. As he approached the mansion, Brogan nudged the door and felt it give. Reaching for his blaster, he cocked it and held it before him, ready for action. Slowly, quietly, he made his way into the entrance hall. He was struck by how opulent it was. In the centre of the room rose a statue of Craylor himself. The guy clearly has ego issues, thought Brogan as he trod gingerly through the house. Rounding a corner into a large open room with a vidscreen displaying a flickering fire, Brogan caught his breath. There, in a chair by the screen, sat Loman Craylor, his blue skin shimmering in the flickering flames. As he walked closer, he could see a scorch mark on his chest. He was clearly dead. Just as Brogan lifted his multicom to call Haldane for backup, he heard a voice behind him. "How nice of you to drop by, Lieutenant Brogan." Back in Brogan's cruiser, Haldane was busy downloading the personnel files from Franklin's headquarters. "Nothing like a little bedtime reading," he sneered, as reams of text scrolled before him. He read about Franklin first. Demeter City born and bred, CEO of various companies, lifelong interest in politics. Nothing unusual there. Despite Craylor's allegations, Franklin had a clean rap sheet. Next, his son, Paul. Excellent education, a police caution for disturbing the peace. Nothing you would call criminal. The female alien was called Dora Fluss, carer to her elderly grandmother, active in politics from an early age. Next, Mona Vladik. Haldane read through her school files and employment history. Nothing unusual there, he sighed. But then, one thing caught his eye. "Computer, scroll back," he commanded, suddenly leaning forward in his seat. "Stop," he barked, as the text scrolled back. There, in green computer text, was listed Vladik's place of birth. Crub Street. Haldane fought hard to remember the conversation in Franklin's campaign headquarters. He was sure Paul Franklin had said something about Rel Gavir, the candidate in third place, growing up in the only Tarn family in Crub Street. Haldane flicked his fringe from his eyes. If Mona Vladik was born in Crub Street and there was only one Tarn family in residence, then that could mean only one thing. Lieutenant Brogan's wrists were hurting, but he wasn't going to let on. "It's so thoughtful of you," Mona Vladik smiled as she tightened the straps around his hands, "making things easy for me." She stood up and walked across the room. Turning back, she held her gun before her. Brogan squirmed in his chair, trying hard not to look at the dead Melozoid in the seat next to him. Vladik had placed his gun on a table by the door, too far for him to reach. "What is it they say on Earth? 2 birds with 1 stone?" Vladik chuckled again. Brogan groaned. His head was throbbing from the blows she'd dealt him. He could feel blood dripping down his forehead. "You do know Officer Haldane will follow me at any moment." Vladik looked delighted. 3 birds, she screamed triumphantly. "Just how'd you get in, Vladik?" Brogan winced. I can't believe Kraylor let you walk right through the door. Oh, but he did, Lieutenant. Vladek smiled as she levelled her gun towards Brogan. I only had to tell him I'd seen the light and I wanted to work for his campaign. She twirled her hair with her free hand. How could he resist? She purred. Why? Rasped Brogan, trying to flex his hands to loosen the straps. Because I'm sick of life being unfair, screamed Vladek, her voice rising in her rage. Brogan narrowed his eyes. Unfair? You have no idea, Vladek hissed. When you grow up on the wrong side of the tracks, you're always going to finish in last place. Well, not this time. She cocked her gun. Just as she squinted down the sight, Brogan shut his eyes tight, waiting for the blast. Brogan! Officer Haldane came careering through the door, his gun in his hand. Vladek is Relgavir's sister. He spun round just in time to see Vladek raise the butt of her gun and bring it down on his head. Haldane saw stars, then crumpled to the floor. Relgavir? Gasped Brogan. The other candidate? The only candidate, Vladek corrected him with a smirk. Now, Lieutenant. You first, I think. Then Officer Haldane. Just as she levelled her gun again, the screen behind Brogan suddenly hissed with static. Vladek stood wide-eyed as the flickering flames were replaced with surveillance footage from Krasaki Plaza. The camera was zoomed in to show Mona Vladek as she stood behind Franklin, moments before the fatal shot was fired from the balcony. Just as Vladek raised the placard above her head, it covered her face for a second or two. As she lifted it clear, her third eye could be seen for a brief moment, blazing its unearthly light, before closing as the placard rose. In that very same moment, the shot rang out, and Franklin crumpled to the floor. Congratulations, came a voice from behind her. You made the news. What? Vladek spun round, only to be confronted by two Creon police officers, their guns raised. That footage, explained Officer Beazle, has been sent to every news channel on Altor. Yeah, added Orin, looking at his watch. In 10 minutes, you'll be top story. He raised his multicom and flicked a switch to break the connection with Kraylor's screen. The image of Krasaki Plaza was replaced once again by that of a flickering fire. Checking that Beazle had the tarn covered, Officer Orin bent to help a recovering Haldane to his feet. Defeated, Vladek dropped her gun and placed her hands in the air. Like I said, Lieutenant Brogan, she called over her shoulder as she was led away. Life is so unfair.
Ooh.
There. Did you enjoy that? That's brand new Space Precinct. That's actual brand new Space Precinct.
Did you ever think you'd be saying those words?
It's funny, isn't it? I have seen a few comments on social media. People say, well, when will there be full cast audio versions of new Space Precinct adventures? Slightly trickier to pull together, I would think, in terms of casting, because I don't know if you'd get many of the original characters, the original actors back. And if you don't, is it really still Space Precinct? All those sort of questions, But who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, maybe there's a way to do it. Whether it's it's set a bit later, or a prequel, or a different precinct.
Yeah, indeed.
Perhaps it's Precinct 42.
Yeah. That's right. There we are. So, Point Blank.
Why did you choose Point Blank of the 4 stories, Richard?
Well, for me, if you don't know Space Precinct, it gives a great introduction to the main characters, in particular to Brogan and Haldane, who, let's face it, were the lead characters in the show. Some of the other stories may sort of focus on other characters, but this one in particular follows Haldane and Brogan as they investigate the death of Franklin, the mayoral candidate there. And I just thought it was a nice way to dip back into a universe you may not have visited for 25 years, or that you may not know at all.
Absolutely spot on, smashing Demeter City dipping.
There you go.
Great work, Richard James. And I look forward to your next instalments of whatever the hell you're writing.
Well, I'll let you know. And again, I'll probably leave it to the last minute and then send it over.
Yes, pretty standard. No, but you're a very busy boy. You're always doing writing and stuff, aren't you? So.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Lovely. Do let us know what you thought of that. Drop us an email, podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk, and we can read out your praise and slating of that story next week.
Yeah, great. Now, Jamie, before we go any further, I've got a bit of a news item, which a few people highlighted on our Facebook group and also on Twitter. Oh, sorry, did you hear that?
No, what was that?
No, fine. It's just a little bit on my computer telling me there might be a virus threat. I'm sure there isn't. This is from a well-known daily newspaper a few days back, and it says a huge hidden cache of Thunderbirds creator Gerry Anderson's production puppets, props and scripts have emerged for sale for £150,000. So I don't know if you want to club together on this, Jamie. It says they had belonged to the late John Bell, a driver and handyman at Brace Studios in Berkshire, where the special effects for Anderson's shows were filmed. He was given hundreds of mementos by a senior director at Anderson's production company, as they had no storage facilities for them. The archive was uncovered following Mr. Bell's death last year and is now going under the hammer with auctioneers Eubanks of Woking in Surrey. One of the marquee lots is an £8,000 Captain Ochre puppet head, which was used on screen in the 1967 series Captain Scarlet and the Podsterons. Also being sold is a 30-inch by 40-inch British quad film poster for Thunderbirds I Go, worth £500, and hand-drawn concept art for T-Force, a 1983 planned Thunderbirds remake which never happened, which is tipped to go for £600. In it, Lady Penelope can be seen with Parker in front of Fab 1 sitting at the wheel, and there are also several puppets up for grabs which were used in Anderson's 1980s science fiction series Terrorhawks, including a £6,000 Battlehawk and an Officer Kathy Costello puppet worth £2,500.
From Space Police. Yeah.
That's right. There you go. What a mixture of stuff this guy was hoarding, or keeping rather.
Yeah.
Safekeeping, let's say.
Absolutely. Well, yes, and in standard style for this particular newspaper, it was actually Julian Bell.
There you go.
Not John Bell. That's not your
Yes.
error, Richard. That is
No.
newspapers. Yes, and I saw the pictures of the Neinstein puppet and Kate Kestrel puppet.
Oh, yeah.
Who have not aged well, have they?
Well, no, none of us have, Jamie, let's face it.
Well, yes, but I don't think any of our faces have collapsed in quite the same way as Kate Kestrel's has, bless her.
It's quite alarming.
It's nice when these things, pop up. Obviously, sad given the circumstances.
Yeah.
But I mean, Julian stuff they've been disposing of via auctions for the last 6 months or so. In fact, I think even as early as late last year, various bits and pieces have come up. It was amazing the stuff that he was storing. So I hope they go to great new owners. In fact, there was one thing, we were trying to get hold of a full script of Operation Shockwave.
Oh, yes.
Which was put up for sale, but unfortunately we were outbid. So I still don't have the full script of Operation Shockwave. So if anybody knows where that went, we would love to get a scan of it for our archive.
Yeah, great. Well. Yeah, there you go. Amazing. He sort of kept it to himself. I mean, I would think maybe if you were reaching your later years and you had, several tens of thousands of pounds worth of stuff, you might want to enjoy the proceeds while you could. I
think Julian was just an extreme collector. He really loved to have that stuff and to catalogue it. So
good for him. Great.
Yeah, exactly.
Lovely. Nice. There you go. Just thought I'd bring that up. Now, a few tweets, because people have been listening to First Action Bureau and they've been making their thoughts very well known to us all. Rob Doyle, for example, says, no spoilers, but I loved this. Very intriguing. I'm not going to speculate. Just enjoy where the story takes me. I can see this as a TV series. It'll need a big budget, but it would be worth it. Oh, and it looks like Richard James is playing as many characters as possible, says Rob. Yeah. True enough. Emma Nichols, has anyone else noticed there is a nod to Thunderbirds, says Emma? Yes, there might be one or two. Matti Keskivaru says, I really liked the first 3 episodes and looking forward to the next. Alex Patrick, I swear that the SFX when Nero is dreaming perfectly captures what it feels like to wake up from a bizarre dream and have your memory playing tricks on you. Great job, Ian Matthews, says Alex. Angus Dusk says he's just finished First Action Bureau and he needs the next episodes desperately. Christopher Macon said listening to the Fab audio drama and absolutely loving it. And Chrissy Boy said just listen to the first 3 episodes and they're brilliant. Well done to everyone concerned. Excellent. There you go. That just about sums up many of the positive feedback I've seen on Twitter and Facebook. It's been very exciting.
Yeah, people very engaged by it, which is really nice. And also non-Anderson fans coming in to enjoy it as well.
Yes.
So it's really nice that we've been able to put something together that can be appreciated by Anderson and non-Anderson fans alike.
Yeah, indeed. Do get in touch with us on Twitter. Tag him, I'm Jamie Anderson, me, Richard N. James, or him over there just lacing up those lovely shiny boots, Chris Dalek. Hashtag us Gerry Anderson Podcast, and we'll see your tweets and read them out next time.
Or we might not.
Yeah, we might not. Depends how we feel. Depends how good they are or interesting.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Depends how controversial they are.
Oh, don't say that.
No, I'm joking. You can just tweet us, get in touch. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
Richard, now Chris has finished lacing up those lovely boots, shall we let him jump into action, leap into action, all booted and suited for his randomiser?
Let's do that.
Okay, over to you, Chris.
They're stalling. The stupid, dumb cops are just buying their time. They're probably tracking us down right now.
We already discussed that, Lynn. You said it yourself. He'll never talk.
I say... What was that?
I don't know.
Oh, hello. Would you mind letting me out of here? The door button seems to be stuck.
You know you're wasting your time. We modified the release mechanism. It only works from the outside.
Oh, well, that's unfortunate. Am I to take it I've been kidnapped? Again?
That's it.
Ah, well, I should probably warn you I'm notoriously of very low value. Last time my kidnappers didn't even get enough to cover the cost of a bus ticket home. I take it this other door over here opens directly into space.
In case we get tired of you.
Oh, yes, well, it has been known to happen.
Not much fun being locked in a cell, is it?
No, of all the cells I've been locked in, I'd say this one wouldn't even make the top 10.
Well, you better get used to it. Seems like none of your friends want you back.
Ah, well, you're assuming I even have any friends. Could be a big mistake on your part. Oh, they've gone. Oh, what a charming pair of young people. But lucky for me, I've prepared for just such an eventuality and always carry with me the Acme Hostage Survival Kit. Now, let's see what we have in here. A VHS copy of the episode Hostage. Well, something at least. Oh, and wouldn't you know it, I'm locked in the one cell in the universe that has a VHS player right here. How dramatically convenient. Let's see if I remember how to work one of these. Huh. Well, I'm sure watching this will teach me something to help me out of this jam. Maybe. Or not. Here's Supercar. So, welcome back to Supercar on the Randomiser with Hostage. We are outside the Shamrock Inn. And if that name didn't clue you in as to where we are today...
Now. It's a night for the little people. That's what it is. Little people.
Yes, the stereotypes behind the bar will clue you in.
You'll be telling me next the place is infested with smugglers.
It is.
Ah, and there's worse than smuggling goes on in these parts. Some say 'tis the big man himself has a hand in things.
Or his men anyway, for a fact.
Ah, fiddle. I shall retire.
So that was what, less than 30 seconds, and we had leprechauns and Lord alone knows what else. And speaking of what else, rocking up outside the Shamrock Inn, where Dr. Beaker is currently staying, we have...
Time in this old governor. Nonsense Island's a fine country, quiet and peaceful. You found...
Harper and Judd.
How far, haven't you?
What? This is their third and, I think, final appearance in the series, but the first time they've appeared on the Randomiser. And... this is a pair of villains that I've always rather enjoyed with this show.
Hey, let's get inside before I catch pneumonia.
And it's kind of a shame that they never appeared again. This is Harper is for those who don't know, Harper is
let's have something to drink.
A disgruntled employee of a company who robbed. I think he robbed the blueprints to Supercar from their safe, and
it seems to me I've seen those two gentlemen somewhere before.
Yes.
Harry, please.
And Judd is his, he's a prototype Parker. As you can probably hear from the David Graham voice.
'Tis two of them. I thought I'd seen them.
Hold your tongue, Eileen.
It is. They work for the big man.
Not the big man.
I'll send for the police.
Oh.
Ooh, and Harper's pulled a gun.
You know about the big man then, eh? I should have kept my mouth shut. But there's no harm done.
So in the previous two episodes, Harper and Judd were working alone. Now they seem to be working for the big man.
Careful, Father. He has a gun in his hand.
That's...
Oh, does he now? Right, well, I'll leave you to it.
I won't have to use it now, will I? All right. What do you want us to do? Just keep your mouth shut.
And this this bartender and his daughter. The daughter has, I believe, been mentioned on Fab Live previously as looking very much like Olivia Colman.
My little Irish Colleen.
Here, Gov. I don't know I like this.
I know what I'm doing. Now, come on.
And I think that her father, the bartender, looks rather like Sam Kidd.
By Jove. It's Harper and Judd.
Now.
And it only took me about 2 minutes to figure that out.
Daughter again. Alive.
They're kidnapping the bartender's daughter.
Oh dear, oh dear. I must contact Mike immediately.
that descended from this looks like a nice pub to let's kidnap the landlord's daughter with record speed, I would have thought.
What am I going to do?
I would not distress myself unduly if I were you.
She's only one daughter. I mean, children are overrated, Mr. Bartender.
Get here quite quickly. His name is Mike Mercury.
I'm not quite sure why Beaker is in Ireland. Holidaying, I suppose.
Come on, let's get going. It sounds as if Beaker needs our help kind of urgently.
Okay, Mike. Roof doors opening.
Could you not... Oh, no, Harper and Judd said not to contact the police. I'm still not sure why, but... Here he goes. Supercar off to the rescue. Mike's dressed rather warmly for Ireland. And I believe this may be the only Anderson episode set in Ireland.
Professor?
All clear here, Mike.
That's probably wrong, but I can't remember too many Irish influences on Anderson stories. Mostly it was Scotland. Scotland was the big place for the Anderson stereotypes to congregate.
What might mean by that, Professor?
Well, you see, Jimmy...
Shut up! It's none of your business.
The sun rises 7 hours earlier in Ireland than it does here, so the night is going to seem very short to him. Right, Mike?
Right, Professor. You make it clear as daylight. And daylight's what I'm going to hit 5 hours from now.
So again, that's a nice little sort of scientific lecture for the audience, which I do like in this show. It's like they're not just going to overwhelm you with the mundane technicalities of Supercar itself. Let's get some sort of real-world geographical facts in there too.
Took her away with them.
I believe, Mike, they were Harper and Judd.
Harper and Judd, eh? I'd like to get my hands on those two again. But the first thing...
Yes, because the last time the Supercar team tangled with Harper and Judd, it was in Scotland. So they're visiting all the stereotype haunts.
There's many a pound I'd pay to get me hands on the pair of them. But they come and go as they please, and there's nothing I can do while leaving me poor Eileen a prisoner.
You don't know where their hideout is?
I daren't follow them, sir. And this is a terrible hard place to move about in at night anyway.
What do you think, Doc? Shall we try our old trick?
What here in public, Mike? Oh, I see.
It's worked before.
And our friend Judd would steal anything, I'd say.
Yes, they brought this...
Precisely.
Oh, now, what was this? This was in a previous episode, a sort of...
Prepare our trap.
Homing device that they left in a briefcase. I think Master Spy stole it. So now they're going to leave it out for Harper to steal.
We have to go to the village, and you'll have to stay safe here.
Yeah. Sorry, miss.
Oh, good, the both of you. I can do without your company. Poor father. He'll be worried, and he'll not be able to do a thing about me.
Well, you are part chipmunk, judging by the look of your teeth. You could gnaw your way out. Yeah, Harper and Judd have just left her in a cell, not tied up, and the cell looks rather loaded with, all sorts of weapons she could use to escape. Anyway. Oh, it's the Dublin Horse Fair coming soon.
Hands to yourself this time, Judd. We only need supplies.
But it was your idea to steal a whole woman last time we came here.
It's a habit you could well do without. Come on.
I do really like the Harper and Judd dynamic. It's like they're sort of the persuaders of... the landlord shaked his fist at them.
Eileen.
Yeah, it's they're partners in crime, but one's come from a wealthy background, and the other is the as I said, the prototype Parker Cockney safe breaker.
Put that in too. We want to look after her.
And he's spied the suitcase that Mike and Beaker have left behind. Oh, what's in there? Money.
Nah, that's careless. Looks like her old man's takings to me.
Well, that's the lot. We'll pay later. I hope you will, too.
That's it. They're off. I wonder if Judd fell for our bait.
If I knew Judd, yes.
And good riddance to yous. And I'm...
Right, so now we're several £100 down, and we still haven't got his daughter back. Oh, well, we have a nice slow zoom in on an empty table.
How's it coming, Doc?
They're northeast, about 5 miles. Why have we always got to walk everywhere?
Because there aren't any roads, and if there were, it wouldn't be a hideout, would it?
Well, it's all right for you, Governor. You ain't carrying this.
No.
5 miles. That's a long way for these two to be hiking.
What?
every single day, judging by the way they've behaved so far.
That's valuable, that is. They appear to...
I like that little bit of incidental music, by the way. I don't think that's Barry Gray. I think that's from the...
Far away.
Oh, whatever music library it is that they used to steal little extra bits of music like that one there. It sounds a bit prisonerish.
All right, my dear.
Anyway, down in the cellar...
To you, if I have. What's that?
Olivia Colman and her mighty teeth.
Might say, miss, from your father's bar.
What is it?
Money. Full of £1 notes, that is.
Ooh.
Must be more than 500 quid there.
Isn't that a likely thing now? As if my father would have a case with £500 in it. And even if he had, do you think he'd leave it out for the likes of you to take?
Listen.
Considering that the Andersons were running on like one female voice artist through this show, I think Sylvia does quite well a lot of the time with these guest characters.
East of here, then.
I mean, not so much Jimmy, but I suppose Jimmy is just insufferable. That's not really her fault. That's the way the character's written.
This could be a difficult place to search, even with Supercar.
Oh.
It's talking, Gov.
A talking box.
They all talk about round here. I swear it is.
Be quiet, you fool. I know those voices.
So what, has the box malfunctioned? Is that why Harper and Judd can hear them? Oh.
Joan the Crow.
Harper's found the radio under the money.
It was a trap, see? It's a radio. Hear everything we say, so we'll turn it to our advantage and tell them everything we want them to know.
Can't you get it a bit more accurate than that, Doc?
That's a rare technical malfunction for the supercar team.
Oh.
And Beak hasn't even got Jimmy around to
He must have been switched on by accident.
to blame. Oh, that was Mike, because
They
he
haven't heard us.
I doubt it. If they did,
leant across the radio there,
Well, tonight...
flipped the listen button over to talk.
Judd,
That's right, Governor.
you go out and put the landing lights on, then. We don't want the pilot to miss...
Oh, Harper and Judd are now leading them on.
overhear us, Doc, or they wouldn't have been so obliging as to tell us they were laying out landing lights.
Yes.
Everything's going according to plan, Governor.
Then, Mike?
Yeah, I sure will. Why should I waste time searching around now when I can spot them in a couple of minutes by the landing lights? I'll bring Supercar right down at their front door.
Just like they want.
Judd, put them nice and close together. We want Mike Mercury to make a nice, accurate landing, don't we?
I suppose it does make the supercar universe seem quite small that they've run into these guys again.
Top of that...
Oh, burying some dynamite for Mike to land on. Yeah, that they've run into these guys again,
Mike Mercury.
not through any deliberate plan, but just sheer coincidence that Beaker happens to be holidaying at the same place as Harper and Judd are carrying out their latest naughty plot. As I said, this time they're working for the big man, but I don't think we actually ever see a big man in this.
Pilot to console.
Console here.
Hello, Professor. Good, that's established three-way contact now.
Dr. Beaker's about 5 miles away on the ground with a walkie-talkie.
Oh, I can see Supercar, the model, is actually... Oh, it's not anymore, but I could see at the back of Supercar, it was sitting on like some sort of support thing. They were rotating it to be, to be... I can't really describe this very well, what I've seen, but it was whatever Supercar was balanced on that the stagehands would have been tilting to make it look like it was flying. It was visible for one shot there, but only one shot.
Here it goes, then.
Anyway, Mike is now making his landing. Oh, on those lights and on top of the dynamite. Harper and Judd have buried.
Stay right where you are, Mike Mercury.
He's been outsmarted.
On top of enough dynamite to blow you to the moon.
Professor, from Mike. Have fallen into a trap. Now don't ask questions, just do as I say. Inputting controls to remote.
Harper and Judd are just letting him
exactly 3 minutes from now.
do this, just standing there.
Fly back to base.
What's Mike doing, Professor?
I don't know, Jimmy. This is an emergency. I must do exactly as Mike has asked me. 3 minutes from now.
Without distractions, so shut up.
So glad you could drop in. Come over here and don't try any tricks, or your supercar goes up in smoke, see?
Okay, you're the boss.
That's a rather creepy shot of Mike. He's illuminated by Harper's torch, but it's just... The entire frame was dark except for Mike's glowing face in the middle.
This is Mike Mercury, Miss O'Farrell, who has come to pay you a visit. But tell me, why have you left your engines running?
Well, I'm not staying long. Just long enough to collect Miss O'Farrell.
Really? What makes you so confident of getting out at all?
My amazing eyebrows. My gosh, they're looking very bushy today.
We're far enough away to be quite safe. Okay, Judd. Let her go.
Hold it. Supercar contains a secret rocket fuel. We might be quite safe from your dynamite, but if Supercar explodes, it'll blow this farmhouse clean off the face of the earth.
Professor, I have lost contact with Mike. He is in difficulty, I'm sure.
We know, Doctor. We are taking Supercar off without him in 1 minute from now.
Roger. I'll approach hideout on foot. I shall take the radio with me.
It's a very bulky radio to be carrying for 5 miles.
I don't think your rocket fuel is that dangerous.
Don't you?
No.
And Mike succeeded in stalling Harper quite successfully.
That's just what I'm going to do. Okay, Judd.
All right, Gov.
Oh, that's it. Made the cellar shake. Oh, and Miss O'Farrell is having a right turn, to be sure.
Well, Mr. Mercury, we're still here, aren't we? But your supercar is...
Which would be a mildly effective advert break cliffhanger if we didn't know that it was being piloted back on remote control. There it goes.
Satisfactory. Watch the track for me, will you, Jim?
Oh, and Mitch has arrived to liven things up a bit.
Well, she appears to have got away satisfactorily. I wonder how near I am.
I suppose it all depends on... Wait, how did he decide that Supercar got away from the site that he hadn't actually reached yet?
You better phone the big man about that, Gov.
The big man?
Who's he?
Sure, and doesn't he run everything?
Oh, begorra.
Between Dublin and Tralee.
Including these two.
Oh, it wouldn't surprise me. They neither look to have much of a spine, and that's a fact.
Yeah, she don't think too highly of us, eh, Gov?
Yes.
It would have been nice, I think, for Harper and Judd to come back. But I suppose one of the stumbling blocks on that is the departure of George Marcel for the second season. I think so much of what makes Harper work is that sort of snobbishness. Oh, the house they're hiding out in is a painting. That sort of, elite snobbishness, the air of superiority that Harper has. And
what time is it, Professor?
Cyril Shapps is a really great actor. I don't know if he could have carried that off quite as well.
6:25.
But it would have made a change in the second series to have just one Harper and Judd episode rather than all the Master Spy and Zarin ones that we had.
What'll you do when you get there?
That I must admit I don't know, Jimmy. I have spent too much of my life peacefully to be a man of action like Mike. But something will turn up. It always does. How's that track?
I'd say she was a bit too far.
Yes, well, I don't give a damn what you think.
I'll put in a correction.
Is there a rotating supercar adjusting her course? While Beaker's having a nap.
Is that supercar I can hear now, Professor?
No, Jimmy, it's our other top secret invention. Of course it's supercar, shut up! That's it, opening those roof doors. And supercar's coming down. Mind out of the way, Jimmy. Jimmy, oh my god, it squashed Jimmy. Oh well. Oh, thank goodness Jimmy was standing well out of the way.
Hi, Jimmy, refuel as quick as you can.
And they're making Jimmy refuel the thing.
That's it, Professor. Ready when you are.
Oh, and Professor Popkiss is going to go and save the day.
Come on.
He is at the controls of Supercar, which I believe we've seen him at the controls before for...
full boost, both engines.
For the Sunken Temple.
Forgotten something, Jimmy?
Sorry, Professor.
So they've got Jimmy manning the console.
Doors opening.
Good boy. Now give me full boost with both engines.
Which I suppose is slightly less dangerous than having him along as a sidekick. Instead, Popkiss is taking Mitch along, which seems a far superior idea than taking Jimmy.
Yeah, I'm airborne. I should be with you in about 5 or 6 hours.
Roger, Professor. I will be standing by.
Once I've finished my nap. I'm getting a bit confused as to all the time zone variations in this episode. It seems to have been permanently night in Ireland for the entire story.
Hello, Beaker. Is anything happening yet?
Not in this episode, Professor. It's all a bit quiet this week.
No sign of movement yet.
Yes, boss. Harper here. Bad news, I'm afraid. The hideout in Ballyon Bog has been discovered.
Discovered, you say? Harper That's careless.
But we have them prisoner.
Prisoner, you say, Hopper? Now that's a different matter entirely. And much easier. Blow the place up.
Blow it up? But, boss.
Strong words from the big man. Even Harper's a bit taken aback by that.
Good morning, Mike Mercury, Miss O'Farrell.
Mike's eyebrows, Miss O'Farrell's teeth.
Now?
Sure, and it can't be too soon for me.
I wouldn't be too hasty in celebrating, because when we go, this place goes up too.
But what about us?
I'm sorry, we have our orders. And no time to make an alternative plan to look after you.
You wouldn't do it.
Why
So
not?
Harper was initially taken aback at the idea of murder for about 2 seconds, and
Right there.
You seem very confident for a man in...
now he's all on board with it.
Mike Mercury.
I've been in worse.
But this time, I think, is rather different. Because this time, you have no supercar to rescue you.
That's right. I haven't.
But he does. Here comes Popkiss and Mitch.
Console, are you there, Jimmy?
Console to supercar. Is everything all right?
I'm just crossing the...
I was just calling to check you haven't electrocuted yourself or anything, or any other unforeseen accidents.
Supercar, calling Dr. Baker.
Hello, supercar. How far away are you?
I should be right over you in a few minutes. Keep transmitting, and I'll home on you with the radio.
Oh, I love the Mitch puppet. He's so expressive, even though his face isn't at all animated. Just those big eyes.
Looks as though our friend...
He's constantly reacting and rolling his head around.
And I believe Mike and Miss O'Farrell may still be inside.
Oh, no.
I'm afraid, Eileen.
Do you think they mean it then, what they say?
I'm afraid so, Eileen. Unless...
Supercar to Baker, I should be above you about now.
Oh, hurry up then, I beg you. Things are moving fast down here.
And I've had enough of standing in a forest doing nothing.
Can you hear anything, Governor?
Uh-oh.
It can't be. Not Supercar. We destroyed it.
Oh, well, carry on. Yep, Harper and Judd are laying down the, Uh-oh. Oh.
Ah, now they appear to be in some...
Wait, who dug that hole they just fell into?
I suggest that if you land quickly, you may, catch them bending.
Oh, they are, Mitch. I think there may be a little job for you in a moment.
Oh, it's about time we've justified Mitch's inclusion in this story. Wait, was that the hole that... Oh, that's probably the hole that their explosives blew up earlier.
Down right on top of us.
And that was the end of Harper and Judd. Squashed.
Eileen, do you hear that? Supercar's engines. The professor has made it.
Come on, Eileen.
Oh, it's glad I am to hear you say it, Mike.
Don't let our friends get away. I'm going to find Mike and Aileen.
Oh, so Popkiss has authorised Mitch to use lethal force, smashing them over the head.
Are you all right?
Sure, and it's glad I am to see you, Professor.
Shut up with these stereotypes, Mike.
It's all right. I have someone looking after them. Come and see for yourselves.
Actually, maybe this is why Harper and Judd never returned again. Massive head trauma.
I don't reckon they can give us much trouble now.
Oh, gosh. Right, so, Mitch was conking them on the head with a stick. The last shot of Mitch, Harper and Judd have actually disappeared. Presumably passed out, or worst case scenario, they have had their skulls caved in thanks to Mitch. I think that's probably an acceptable reason as to why we never see them again, and that was Hostage, which I've never been a big fan of this one. I sort of give Supercar a pass for the limitations of the production. It has to be very small scale. But it felt a bit
It's Mercury Man.
I don't know, as a send-off for Harper and Judd, which it wasn't really, but for their last appearance, it's not very dramatically satisfying. It's just a little harmless little romp in Ireland, but nothing much more than that, really.
Good bit of Supercar. Always a nice opportunity for Chris Dale to do his Beaker and Popkiss impressions.
Yes.
Always top notch. And possibly the most important question that the randomiser has ever asked there. Was that the only Anderson episode that to be set in Ireland in all of Anderson canon?
Yeah, interesting.
Chris seems to think so. But do you know differently, Podsterons? Were there any others in Ireland? Lots in Scotland. Dad seemed to be obsessed with Scotland for whatever reason, probably the whiskey.
Okay.
But were there any others in Ireland? Let us know, podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. And we'll either prove Chris right or wrong with those answers, won't we?
Yeah, true enough.
There'll be more Randomiser next week with, I suspect, a different story.
Oh.
Now, I was having a chat to Chris Dale earlier today.
Oh, yeah.
And he informed me that we are about 10 randomisers away from getting through a quarter of the entire randomiser catalogue.
You're joking. That's quite worrying, isn't it?
There is no joke here, Richard.
Well,
there are no jokes on the Gerry Anderson podcast, I think you'll find.
Forbid.
So yeah, isn't that amazing?
Crikey. So by Christmas, we'll be quarter of the way through in terms of Randomiser.
So we'll have to celebrate something with a quarter of a cake or...
So that means for him to have done every single episode from every single series, we would have been producing podcasts for about 8 years. Is that right?
It'd be about 530, I think, something like that. So, hey, we're well on our way. You laugh.
We are.
You laugh, but there's a lot still to talk about. And as you always say, Richard, go on, say what you say.
There's brand new Gerry Anderson stuff being made right now.
Fantastic. You're so right. Anyway, there you go. Thanks, Chris. More from him next week. Also, more from us, would you believe? But until
sorry about that.
we come back, please do submit your 10-word recommendations, your 10-word reports of why you love the podcast, your 10 favourite things in single words with full stops in between, if you like, or a single hyphenated 10-word adjective.
Right. Okay, there's a challenge.
Yeah, good luck with that. But yeah, just tweet it to us or drop us an email. So go on, Richard, what do they do to get it to us via Twitter?
Oh, it's very easy. Just hashtag us, Gerry Anderson Podcast. Tag him, I'm Jamie Anderson, me, Richard and James, or him over there, Chris Dalek, and we'll see your tweets. Or you can post it on our Facebook group. Just head to facebook.com/groups/Podsterons, or of course, email us, podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk.
Perfect. Just make sure it's 10 words or less, and in a couple of weeks' time, we'll pick 3 of the best, make them into lovely graphics, and send you something as a thank you for your clever words.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll expect some puntastic entries from Simon Allen, I suspect.
Oh, I should imagine so, yes.
Yeah, I look forward to that, Simon, in advance. Thank you.
And maybe even something from Phil Steer.
I was about to mention the great Phil Steer. What's
it was about
Phil
time.
Steer?
Well, Phil's no longer sort of online as such, but I know he keeps listening, so he might drop us an email with his 10-word review, perhaps.
I imagine it'll be Phil Steer, Phil Steer, Phil Steer, Phil Steer, Phil Steer.
Yes, well, that would do, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'm happy with that. Copyright Jamie Anderson 2020, so you can't use that now. Sorry. Chuck them in. We'd love to hear from you, and it might give us some surprises about how you feel about the podcast too, which would be nice to read.
Ooh,
anyway, that's Pod 122 over and done with, isn't it?
I would say so.
Good. Then it's time for us to leave, bid you farewell, and wish you a very happy week. Don't forget First Action Bureau this Thursday. Make sure you're subscribed, firstactionbureau.com, etc., etc. And we'll see you in Pod 123.
See you then.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Stage 1 complete.
Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
One, two, three.
Yes. It's got a nice ring to it,
I
doesn't
thought
it?
you were going to say 4, 5, 6.
Oh, sorry. Try it again.
1, 2, 3.
5, 7. Oh. I'm sorry. I was panicked.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
So, how long do we have to wait until we have to do a pod 2, 3, 4? I wonder.
I mean, we could do some maths around this, but
it's not that interesting, is it?
It's probably not. No. I mean, what is there anything more interesting before we sign off? Are you making a cake today or anything like that?
I could make a cake if that's what you wanted.
Yes, please. I will have a red velvet cake
Right.
With a Space Precinct police cruiser in fondant on top.
Okay.
Great.
Charlotte!
Off you go. Good luck.
Help.
You have been listening to the Gerry Anderson Podcast. Wasn't it fun?
You have been listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.